Okay, so what is this? Oh, all right, I see what this is. When I was in elementary school, this was back in the 70s. I walked about a mile to school, walked there in the morning, walked back for lunch, walked back to school after lunch, walked back home, 4 trips a day, 2 round trips a day. And about halfway between our house and the school, there was this big house. It was a nice big brick house, real pretty, surrounded by trees. It had this old fashioned fence in front of it, but it was rumored to be the home of a witch. You hardly ever you hardly ever saw anyone at this house. Once in a while, you'd catch a glimpse of an old lady. So of course the rumor had been going for years that she was a witch, and don't go in her yard, don't let her see you, stay away, go quickly past there, don't dawdle. And up on the second floor, it was a brick house, and up on the second floor by the drain pipe, or between the window and the drain pipe, there was this cat, this white cat, clinging to the bricks, looking down at the ground over its shoulder like it was scared and didn't know how to get down. It was ceramic. It was just this porcelain decoration on this house. Okay, now this is me. That's me about, I think it was in third grade here, but the thing that happened that I'm going to talk about happened in first grade. But, that's kind of what I looked like in first grade. And that was Paul's birthday party. That's Paul back there. And so one day, Paul and I were walking on our way home, and Paul was my friend, and we were passing the Witchy house, and this kid came along. I think I have a picture of the kid on the next slide. Yeah, here he is. Oh man, a kid was scary. So he was like in fifth or sixth grade. Paul and I were in first grade. He was one of those kids that when you're in first grade, just the sight of him was terrifying. He was one of these like bad kids, mean kids, like unpredictable kids. And he came along, he caught up to us. We were in front of the witchy house, and he started picking on me. I don't even remember what he said, just like mean, vicious things. And then he started hitting me with a stick, and he was kind of ignoring Paul. Like, I don't know, like I drew his attention. He didn't like the look of me, and so I don't know. I was crying. Of course, I was a first grader. And he started saying, "Oh," he said, "I'm gonna throw you over the fence." The house with the witchy house with the fence, and he couldn't really like throw me or lift me that easily, so he kind of just shoved me up and over the fence, and I fell into the yard of the witch. Terrifying. So then I'm in the witch's yard, and I'm crying, and I'm just terrified, and I run to the gate, and Paul helps me open up the gate and come through before the witch could see me. And the bully is trotting off up the hill, heading toward his house. And just the way he held himself and the way his hair was bouncing, he just looked so satisfied with himself. And I was just so enraged. And now that he was gone, the terror faded, and I was just angry, and I clenched my fist, and I like screamed at the sky and yelled after him that my brothers or my dad or somebody was gonna just get do something, to like bring justice. So the first thing I did when I got home, I went to my brother Preston's room. He was like an eighth or ninth grader, and his room was just stuffed full of vinyl records and like batiks and candles and decorations, and he was in there listening to the Stones or Dr. John and looking at a book about black magic or the occult. And I said, you know I want you to beat up this guy for me. I told him the whole story. I said, I want you to beat him up, which to me was just the natural thing. Like, there was no question that was what was called for. And Preston got in trouble all the time. His hair was too long. He smoked cigarettes. He did stuff I didn't know about. But he got in trouble with my parents all the time. So I thought he wouldn't mind. But he said, no, I don't want to get in trouble for beating up a fifth grader. And I didn't understand that because he seemed like he didn't mind being in trouble. So I went down the hall to my brother Matt's room. He was 10 years older than me. He must have been in 10th or 11th grade. He was on the high school wrestling team, and he was strong. Both my brothers were strong. I could hang off their arms. They could like hold their arms out to their sides, and I could like just suspend myself from them. And they had huge muscles, from my point of view, and they were super tall from my point of view. And so, I thought maybe Matt. And so I told Matt the story, and he just shook his head. He didn't even look up from his algebra homework or whatever he was working on. So I had to wait a couple hours for dinner time to roll around. Dinner time came, and all 9 of us sat down to eat. All 9 of us, me and my parents and my 6 brothers and sisters. And it wasn't until about halfway through dinner that I finally got the courage to call down at the other end of the table, to call out to my dad and say, tell him what had happened. And he listened, and I ended by saying, can you beat him up for me? And I just knew that would be terrifying for this bully. And I was the youngest, by the way, so everyone thought that was hilarious. Little Angus said something funny. He wants Daddy to beat up a kid. Ha ha ha. So I realized that was my last shot. I knew it was a long shot, but still, it seemed like if my brothers weren't going to do it, then it was up to my father. But, people went back to eating, talking about other things, and I kind of realized every day I would pass that house and I would see that ceramic cat up on the wall, looking down at the ground, looking pitiful, and it would remind me of my utter humiliation.